I think this all the time. I don't know how people that foster and don't have faith or relationship with Christ, how they don't just fall over.
Hey everybody, this is Jay Evans, and you are listening to the Jay Evans Thoughtcast, seeking to encourage and spark conversation around taboo conversation. Today is a special episode. It may sound a little different to you because it is taking place in my kitchen with my wife and a baby whose name cannot be mentioned because he is in the foster care system. So if you listen to this with headphones on, you might be getting like a baby ASMR type deal going on. But we get a lot of questions about fostering on social media and in real life, and I thought, man, what a perfect opportunity today to have Kaylee on the podcast and kind of pick her brain about fostering and what it's like from her perspective, because people get to hear my perspective all the time, but you don't have a podcast and you don't post on social that much, so people don't really know what fostering from Kaylee's perspective is. Before we want to kick it off, I do want to say if you enjoy this podcast, be sure to leave a review and share it with someone. Right now, I am taking a break from social media, and that means that I am not currently publicizing this podcast. So if you like this episode, be sure to share it with someone, and it would help me tremendously. So, what is your favorite thing about fostering?
I get to be an aunt to a lot of kids. That's kind of the role I try to play to keep. And it's not always easy, but that's kind of... Someone told me, just act like you're their grandma. Well, I'm not a mom yet, so it's hard to be a grandma. But I'm an aunt, and times a lot. And so that's the role I try to play. It's like, I'm going to care for you as much as I do our nieces and nephews, and do what I would do if they were staying the night with us, however long.
What are some of the positive moments about fostering that have stuck out to you?
Well, the little girl that was with us, she always wanted to pray, and I heard them singing, that her mom, we're friends on Facebook now, and they sang the song that we sing before eating. And her whole family sat around the table and were holding hands and singing the song that we had taught her. And I don't know if that's why they were doing it, but it was just, that was one of the, that's awesome. Because I can remember praying specifically the night before she left for Jesus to go with her. And I asked her, I said, can you teach your little brother these songs that we sing? And she said she would. So I think that's one of the...
What are some other ones?
The little boy learning how to crawl, and then he was almost walking when he left. And so that was just...
He couldn't even sit up when we got him in November.
Yeah. And that was exciting seeing those milestones. And it's kind of like we're going to be extra prepared when we have our own kid. Because we're helping take care of other people's kids. You keep spitting out this binky.
I think probably my favorite moment, with the little boy definitely was just watching him grow so quickly.
Yeah.
And the little girl, I think it was the month before they left, her and I finally connected.
Yep.
And we're bonding, and some of my favorite pictures are her sitting with me, and she was my little goofball.
With the guitar,
because
or...
Kaylee isn't very goofy, but she loved just any time I would be goofy, just thought it was the funniest thing ever. What is the hardest thing about fostering?
Being the aunt. Staying in that role. Because it's hard to... I saw a quote the other day, and I sent it to you. Taking care of a kid 24/7 and not loving them like your own. And maybe that's a good thing because you're going to do everything you can to take care of them. But it's also, it's just hard because they leave and you might not be able to see them again. But we're fortunate enough that there's Facebook and we're able to see pictures of the kids that were with us and the siblings because we got to know them as well. And so that's, I don't know, it'd be a lot harder if we weren't friends and couldn't see pictures. that helps. Because you care for them. I mean, we had them for 3 months, and it's short, but it felt like
3 years.
We learned and grew a lot. And I think they did too.
Yeah. I always tell people, and you've heard me tell people, that fostering is the hardest thing we've ever done, and we love it. And
sometimes.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
Ask me. It depends on the time of day.
Yeah, that's true. I can't tell you. Well, I mean, after they left, and that would be my answer, was the hardest thing is when they leave. Was the moment they went out the front door and got in the car, we just wept. And I looked at you and I said, let's go get something to eat.
Yep.
And we got out of the house, and we had both determined that we weren't going to do it again. Because as we've processed through it, and I just realized this a couple weeks ago, I said, when they leave, it feels like a death in the family. We've both lost people, and it's like you don't get to see them again or communicate with them. And I mean, it's not the same thing, but that's the closest thing to make it. And
it's kind of more like a breakup.
Yeah.
Because they aren't dying.
Right. I think that's a better way to say it.
And I didn't like those in school.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I remember how supportive people were.
Oh my word, yes.
When the kids.
Well, they were when they came.
Right.
I mean, the church held a gift card thing.
Yeah.
And every
when
time
they got
we
placed
went,
with the kids, they all got us
we'd be
gift
praying
cards
for gas money or different things, and we'd go and someone would hand me a Walmart gift card or a gas card.
Yeah.
And it's like, there are so many. That's one of my favorite things, the God winks.
Mm.
Whether it be through money or, I mean, with the last kid, we'd be getting low on diapers and someone else would show up with diapers every single time. And so it's the little God winks that he's like, I asked you to do this, so I'm going to be here to take care of you through it all.
Yeah. I had forgotten about that all those times. Because
Sabrina told me, she said, you need to write these down so you don't forget. And I didn't.
For some background, when we got the kids, because it was our first placement, it took 2 months to get what they call a per diem for the kids.
Which basically covers childcare.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
And I remember, because keep in mind, Kaylee is a teacher and I'm in ministry. So we are not making the big bucks. And the church held this gift card drive, and we didn't ask anybody to. Somebody said, would you be okay if we did this for you? And I said, that would be fine. And I mean, working in Fort Wayne and having these 2 kids, and I can talk about this now because it's not happening. But I remember there was, what? You gave me,
I don't know what you're going to say.
But there was one time, and I had to go to work, and I didn't know how I was going to get home.
Yeah.
I was like, that was probably one of the biggest risks I've ever taken. I've been thinking on risks and how they interact with faith.
Yeah.
And I said, God, you've been meeting our needs. You've been faithful. I'm going to work today in Fort Wayne, and I don't have enough gas money to get home. Okay?
There it is.
There it is. You know how much is in the bank account.
Yep.
And it ain't much. And because, I mean, we were, and not to mention, this is before Christmas.
Yep.
And I remember the Christmas Eve service was over, and somebody walked up to me and said, I got you these gas gift cards. It wasn't just gift cards, it was gas gift cards. And I never told them how much that meant to me. I never told them what was going on because I didn't want anybody to think that, we weren't making enough or something like that. It was always stuff like that. We needed something.
But what happens when you get the kids is you buy all the things that they need.
Right.
And that's not what we...
Yeah, we weren't blowing all of our money like...
We're used to. We budgeted for 2 and not 4.
And the 2 kids we got didn't have anything.
They didn't come with anything.
Right. Because of the way the process worked.
Right.
And I'm like, recalling all of these memories that I've suppressed for so long.
Yes.
So
Don't think about it.
don't think about it. Yeah. So, and here's one of my favorite questions, because you and I mean, just being honest on the podcast, we talk about taboo conversations. There's a lot of things people say to foster parents that are annoying. And that may be because I'm more irritable than the average person.
Well, I would.
And that's not the question.
Okay.
So I don't want you to, I don't
Well, I
want to
was
go down
going to
that.
tell you something that I hear that I wouldn't call annoying, but I hear it more often than anything.
What's that?
I couldn't do that. And my response is usually, I can't either. I mean, I say that all day long. And I can't. I think this all the time. I don't know how people that foster and don't have faith or relationship with Christ, how they don't just fall over. I don't understand it. But
Well, one thing that you and I tell each other all the time, and I told you today, nothing worth doing is ever easy.
I know.
And
Yep.
back to the first question, why we started, the Bible is really clear that God wants the church to take care of those that aren't being taken care of. And I remember I was leading the teens through a Bible study in James, and James says, take care of the orphans and the widows. And some people skim over that, but me, it just gripped me to the core. Like, what am I doing for the people that have no one? Because, I mean, you look all throughout the Bible, God is always thinking about those that cannot take care of themselves. You know, Jesus says, when you gave water to the least of these, you did it to me. And you've been frustrated sometimes when I have given homeless people way too much money. Or taken, one big thing was, and it hasn't always been fostering. I mean, I was a youth pastor for a year, and even back then we were taking kids out to eat and spending time with them, and
All of the time.
and it was
Which is great.
the money would just always show back up.
Yep.
Because it wasn't, taking the kids out to eat, but it was that time spent with them.
Which is why we did it.
And again, the money with that would always show up.
And this is something totally different, but we talk about it all the time. How Jesus ate with people, and that's why we did it. Because
There's something spiritual about
yes,
eating together.
good conversations happen and relationships are built. And
One of my favorite instances of that is after Jesus has risen and Peter has denied him. It says, after they ate breakfast, Peter was sitting with Jesus.
yeah,
And I read that and I'm like, that's in there for a reason. When do you
Breakfast
start?
is important.
Like, one of the redemptive moment of Peter's life after they ate breakfast. I can recall powerful conversations I've had over meals with people. And maybe that's the special thing about dating. I've never thought about that before. But yeah, I think that's probably the thing that annoys me the most. I remember telling somebody about a prospective kid we were going to get, and they said, that sounds terrible.
yep.
And kind of, so the question was, and again, I mentioned we would go off on rabbit trails, and we're probably going to do a lot of trimming in this podcast. What do you wish more people knew about fostering?
What do I wish more people knew?
Mm-hmm.
That they could do it. I mean, especially if they've had kids of their own. I think that's our biggest holdup. But even if they don't, I know of a lot of, we're in a foster group, support group on Facebook, and there are a lot of single foster parents, and especially to teenagers. We think about this all the time at school, but the hardest ones to love need it the most, and they need people, especially Christians. I mean, there are a lot of people proclaiming to be Christians that, I'm not going to go there, but that could step up. I mean, that song, Do Something. There's something, we can't just keep praying for God to do something with these families that are broken. And the drug epidemic, we have to, what does he say? What is his name? That sings that song.
Matthew West?
Yeah. If not us, then who?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to go in with the mindset of this kid could be mine forever. It's go in with the mindset of I could help restore this family by bringing Christ into their life.
You'd be amazed at the kids that have no idea what it's like to be hugged.
Yeah.
No concept of...
Their physical touch has never been good.
No concept of right or wrong.
Yeah.
And in the 3 months we spent with those kids, we saw them transformed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and they were little.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I wish more people knew about fostering was that God tells us to do something for these kids. That doesn't mean... I don't think everybody's called to be a foster parent. I think there's some people that need to be foster parents and are ignoring the calls in their life.
Right.
And whether it be donating to Compassion, helping kids overseas.
Yeah, sponsoring.
Sponsoring a kid.
A kiddo.
Whether it be...
And that was the first thing we did when we got married.
Yeah.
We've had
that
him
was pretty soon.
Since we got married.
Yeah. I wish we could go back and see when we started...
It was right after we got
need
married.
to look online and see how. It could be like Chris Mack, Big Brothers Big Sisters, volunteering at the boys club. It can be serving in the kids ministry at your church. The big picture is
do something.
Do something specifically for the orphans.
Yes, and you have to include the widows.
That's the emphasis of this episode.
Right.
And so the widows are in there too. But God commands us to do something for the orphans. Mm-hmm. And I get frustrated. And this is where we talk about taboo subjects in the podcast. I get frustrated with people that say they're pro-life Christians.
Yeah.
That get up in arms about abortion and things like that and don't do a thing about the hundreds of thousands of children in the foster care system.
Well, we have friends that they do a part by helping us. I mean, you had classes, and I would go to one of our friends' house, and she'd sit there and hold the baby for me, and I'd just rest. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, that's helping.
Right.
Like you said, not everyone's called to foster, but we can help each other.
I think of, and the way I wanted to tie this up, and it'll probably be the title of the podcast, how can people support foster families? And as I thought about this, I really wanted to say, give them money. Because they are so freaking broke after the placement. But the thing that I came to was like, I don't think that's it.
No.
I think the way that you can support foster parents is get alone with God and say, God, these people are in my life. Mm-hmm. Or maybe there's a struggling family in your life. And get alone with God and say, God, show me how I can help this family. Because it might not be money.
No.
It might be, hey, and we're so thankful for our friends Zach and Danielle. It might be saying, hey, Jay is at a class today for 3 hours. You can come to our house. We'll hold the baby. You can sit for a minute and do nothing. It could be, people have gifted us.
Our neighbors showed up with when we got this last placement. I let them know because our coworker Jackie, I let her know that we were getting a baby, and she's first thing, what do you need? And I said, well, I think I need some pajamas, maybe some, and one other thing. They came with like 9 Walmart sacks. They bought every single outfit Walmart had to offer. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And she even bought shampoo and lotion because like your baby has to smell good. Not just the baby. The baby needs to smell good. And I'd go to work and people would hand me diapers. And they're like, I don't know if this is the kind you like. And I'm like, it's a diaper. Thank you.
Yeah. I remember my parents, every time they went to Walmart, they would get formula.
Well, your mom at work,
yeah,
she keeps us in stock with gas drops.
Yeah. My mom has an intuition for knowing what we need. And it was almost like we'd be praying, God, we're getting low on formula. And we don't. Because
it took our first placement, it took us 2 months to get WIC.
Yeah.
To help with that.
And
now I kind of know how to make it go quicker.
My parents would come and say, here's some formula. We did not want to tell anybody anything. We didn't want to manipulate them or make them feel bad for us. And I'm sure a lot of that's pride.
Maybe.
We don't want to admit that we're in need. Mm-hmm. But get alone with God and say, God, there's this family in my life. And maybe it's a family God has had on your heart for a long time and you don't know why. But just saying, God, how can I help this? It might be volunteer. And I remember, man, was just the times when somebody would watch the kids so we could get out of that. And you might not be able to give anything. You can give your time. And I remember we only really went on like 3 dates the whole time we had those kids. We didn't go anywhere for Valentine's Day. We couldn't.
Well, there are things people have to do to be able to help out. They have to have background checks, and so it is a little more complex. But even when you're praying, it could be a family that's not a foster family. Mm-hmm. It could be an older couple. It could be
single mom, single dad,
new parents. It could be a teenager that seems to be going down the wrong path. It doesn't have to be. We're supposed to take care of each other.
I remember you weren't feeling good. We got the kids on Tuesday or Wednesday?
I think it was Tuesday, because that's the day
And Friday, our friend Matt said, is there anything you need? And all day you had been saying, Jay, I could kill for a Sprite.
And it was Black Friday.
And it was Black Friday.
Yes.
And Matt it really wasn't in his mind. And he shows up and he was like, Walmart was insane, but I got you this case of Sprite. And even that was like...
I was like, praise the Lord.
We didn't tell anybody. But it was... And it's been like that with every placement. Yeah. And every time God...
So if you really want to see God work, become a foster parent.
Yeah, that was one thing when we thought we were going to stop fostering.
Yeah.
Was 2 things we hated. How quiet the house was, and how comfortable we felt.
We've always said God doesn't like when we're comfortable.
And we were stretched and stretched and stretched while we fostered.
Yes.
And then the kids leave and we're just, we're sleeping in and we're doing this and that. And I don't have to plan out my day. We just knew that was like, this is not where God wants us. Mm-hmm. And we had...
Explain how it happened.
I had been feeling in my stomach.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't going to be as simple as saying, God, I'm done.
Yeah.
He was like, nah, nothing. And I'd been thinking about it, and I had been thinking, man, I hate how quiet this house is. And
Niles didn't bark enough.
Niles has been sad since the last 2 kids left.
He, every single night, bunny trail, what is that what you called it?
Rabbit trail.
Same thing. Bunny's better.
Yeah.
Every single night since that they went back home, he climbs into bed with us, but then he jumps back down and he goes and looks for him and then comes back. And he never did that before.
No.
And even last night I noticed he looked over into the bed where baby sleeps and he checked on him, and then he jumped down and went and looked for the other 2 kiddos, and he was really sad. He laid around the first couple days, and we knew he would be because he and the baby boy loved each other. Oh my goodness. He would lay on Niles. He would stand up by pushing on Niles. They loved each other. And so he's tried to get this new baby who's a lot smaller and not there yet to hold the bone for him while he chews on it, because that's what the other kid
The other one would pull on the bone. And he would try to stand up and have death grips on Niles' puppy fat.
Yes.
And Niles was just like, I love you.
Yep.
He would lick him in the face until he stopped.
Yes, because he's like, that really hurts, but I love you.
Never. So back to laying. I was laying in bed one night.
I was asleep.
And you were asleep. And I felt like, there's been a few times in my life where I felt like this, but like I needed to get on my face before God, not just pray. And I remember the night before the kids left, I was prostrate on the sunroom floor, on my face before God. And it was this way. And I said, God, and I always remember these prayers so clearly, I need to write them down. I said, I know this is what you want us to do, but you're dealing with Kaylee. I said, and we talked about how we were struggling to each other. We've always talked about stuff like that. And I said...
We were in agreement that we were never fostering again.
I said, I'm willing, but I'm not willing to deal with my wife. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said, I asked for just some help.
Yes.
A sign to look for.
It was a Saturday night.
And we're driving to church the next day. And I said, Kaylee, I've really been thinking that God still wants us to foster. And I made sure that you had coffee first. And you said, well, I've been thinking about that too. And we went to church, and the sermon was about hearing God's call in your life and following him where he wants us to go. And remember, we looked at each other and we were like, okay. And then a couple days went by, and we got this little guy that's with us now. And the thing that's, I don't want to say easier, but the last kids, we were blindsided when they left.
Yeah.
There was no climax. They just called one day while we were eating supper.
Yep.
And said, we don't want to do this, but tomorrow we're coming and picking up the kids and they're going home. With this one, we've pretty much known, there's the refrigerator, we've pretty much known that
the goal,
he's not
the goal
gonna be with
was
us forever.
reunification last time as well, but it was short. And the goal is reunification, but you could still be blindsided because it could be any time. But it seems to be going at a pace where it's just gradually increasing.
Then we know what's happening.
Right. It changes because each
branch is different.
Yes,
of
completely
DCS.
different. Caseworker, it depends on who you're working with and if they like you.
Yeah. So, another big thing you need for foster parents is just seriously pray for them.
Yep.
Not just, oh God, be with them. He is.
He is.
He is. But as we close this, I just encourage you to ask God, how can I help how can I help the families you've put in my life? And ask God to give you a burden. If you can't think of any families, say, God,
look up that song.
Break my heart for what breaks yours. So, Beeb, thanks for being on.
But be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared. You are not prepared.
No, but I'm just letting them know because no one let me know. Are you sure you want to say that?
Yeah.
Because it'll happen.
Well, Beeb, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yep.
Hope this one's gonna be like every time I post about you on Facebook and my number is just throttle. Every time I post a picture of you on Facebook, it just does better than any of my posts.
Oh,
my podcast number's been down lately, so hopefully you get them back up.
I understand what your plan was now.
So thanks for listening to the podcast. If you ever have any questions about fostering or anything like that,
or you want me to take over, let us know.
Or if you want Kaylee to take over the podcast, or if you want to see Kaylee on more podcasts and you'd like to hear her talk about something, let us know. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe. Share the podcast with a friend. And if you have listened to this podcast, you've made it about 40 minutes. You the real MVP.